IQ Smart Parent is made possible in part by the McCune Foundation and the Grable Foundation.
Today on IQ Smart Parent, the topic is social and emotional learning. The goal is to help your kids build the confidence they need to succeed in the classroom and in life. Discover ways to use digital media for social and emotional learning. Get tips for choosing the best apps to boost social awareness skills. And meet teachers who developed an innovative science program for girls. And it starts with building self-esteem. Then hear from the girls themselves as they reveal the link between self-confidence and academic achievement. That's all coming up on this edition of IQ Smart Parent, and it starts right now. Welcome to IQ Smart Parent. I'm your host, Darieth Chisholm. Today we're talking about the social and emotional skills every child needs to succeed. And I'm so happy to introduce you to our first guest. Hedda Sharapan is the PNC Senior Fellow at the Fred Rogers Center. It's a nonprofit that continues the vision and educational mission of Fred Rogers, the host of the iconic children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And we also welcome Katie Gallone, who is a program associate for educational projects at the Pittsburgh Association for the Education of Young Children. Welcome to you both. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
So let's begin our discussion today with your definition of social and emotional learning.
Well, you've got three words here: social, emotional, and learning. And first, social has to do with getting along with others. What are the skills that children need to be a playmate, to be a schoolmate? And you think about it, you'll need this for life skills, family life and work life. What does it mean to get along? It means you have empathy, you can see things from somebody else's point of view, you feel good enough about yourself, your self-esteem, you can solve problems, you can do conflict resolution, compromising, collaborating, cooperating. The emotional skills have to do with expressing your feelings, dealing with your feelings in positive ways. And actually, what's interesting is the two of them really do go together: impulse control and getting along with others. And then the third part of that is the learning or the development. Children aren't born with those skills. They need the help of a caring adult who guides them through experiences and helps them develop them.
Katie?
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more, Hedda. I mean, it's just the way the children connect with the world and learn to connect with the world.
And so much of our world these days is controlled by digital media. Children, families, everyone, we're all influenced. What words do you have for parents who might be skeptical about using technology as a means for teaching social and emotional learning?
I would say not to be scared, that it is something used in an appropriate way, in an intentional, being interactive. And a lot of the research is really focused on joint engagement, meaning the adult with the child, talking, asking questions about what you're doing.
I think one of the toughest parts is that parents today really appreciate the time that the child is sitting there quietly and not making a mess. And I know what family life is like these days, and I can appreciate it. And yet there are ways of keeping an eye on and an ear on what the child is doing and asking questions afterwards. Fred Rogers he loved the Quaker saying that attitudes are caught, not taught. And if you have a sense that your child can get something positive out of this, then that's going to help the child. Now, the other side, I'll give you another Fred Rogers quote, which is, he used to say, television is the only appliance that's best used when it's off and you use it. And if a child is doing something with that screen time, and you can say even afterwards, remember what you were doing with that, and look how it happens here too.
I'll add the other quote that has been quoted by Fred Rogers, and that's, computers can spell hug, but it can't give you one. Let's move to your chapter in the book, the Technology and Digital Media in the Early Years, Tools for Teaching and Learning. The title of your chapter is Technology as a Tool for Social Emotional Development. What can we learn as it relates to that from Fred Rogers' approach? I mean, what was his total approach there?
Well, Fred came to television because he said, let's see how we can make a gift out of this. And he wanted to find a way to use it positively. And I think if we think of it that way, what apps are best, what games are best, how much time is best, what's best for my child. It's that very personal sense of what is my child doing with this and what does it mean to my child.
And we've talked a lot about, obviously, parents and children, but as it relates to teachers, Katie, and their involvement in helping children with their social emotional learning.
Well, and the one thing actually I was thinking about too when Hedda was bringing that up as well with teachers, and just really focusing on nothing replaces relationships and human relationships and the interactions. So interactions are very important, and when working with teachers, we really try to emphasize the position statement, which is the National Association for the Education of Young Children, and the Fred Rogers Center position statement on what is developmentally appropriate and best practice using in the classroom. So that's really what we try to emphasize.
What technology is on the horizon now for the classroom, as well as for parents at home as it relates to all of this?
Well, there are some digital tools coming out. I guess some buzzwords would be coding, how coding is being transferred using maybe an app. So that will be something that I think families and parents will start to maybe hear about, is coding, which really in the early childhood world is patterning and sequencing, but just extending that with the coding. Also, there's going to be just some virtual, there's some virtual glasses that just came out too that are really neat as well, that I think also in some classrooms.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on the coding that Katie was talking about, what that does is it helps children actually be creative on the screen. And that sense of, instead of passive watching and passive seeing what's happening on the screen and drinking that in, children are creating and they're figuring out how to make this, and it's that figuring out and the problem solving. And I think the other side of this is that what I'm hearing is that there's a lot of social interaction when children are working together to create something on the screen. And I know teachers pairing children up. Now, the other side of that is I do FaceTime every night with my 8-year-old and 5-year-old grandchildren.
I do that too.
But the other part of that is now what's happening is that they're fighting with each other, who wants to talk to grandma. And so my daughter, who was a kindergarten teacher and very wise parent, said, you girls will have to figure out a plan. How do you make this work? So there's your social development, because it's not just the content of what's on that screen.
Right, and it's that opportunity to really connect, especially where there's distance. So we only have just a couple of seconds left. I'd like you to please add any final thoughts on this.
I think it's also important about helping families turn it off and helping them say, even to their children, when are you going to turn it off? And helping the children, or sitting there with them at the very end of that.
Katie?
And really keeping that joint engagement, that interactive, that active use, which means asking questions, being engaged, versus the passive use, as Hedda had mentioned.
Ladies, thank you so much. There's so much that we could talk about on this subject, so we do appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Studies show strong social and emotional skills lead to greater academic achievement, and our next guest proves it. Take a look at some teachers and students who are accomplishing great things in the classroom, and then meet them right here in our studio.
Unity! Unity! Once a sister, always a sister. Once a sister, always a sister. SistersEsteem focuses on empowering the middle school girl and STEAM education. Respect! Respect! The reason why it's called SistersEsteem is because we're playing off of self-esteem. We support, we uplift, we are there. I went out and surveyed girls to find out what they like. We came up with a unit called Beautistry. It teaches the basic principles of chemistry through making products that they actually can use. The girls have made lipstick, lip gloss, deodorant. So we love ourselves from inside out. Once you love self, you can do anything.
Empowerment.
I want them to know that science is everywhere and that they too can do science.
Through STEAM, you can change your family, community, and the world.
The SistersEsteem program empowers young women through hands-on science lessons. And we've got some of those young women in our studio with us right now. We will hear from them in just a moment. But first, I'm so pleased to introduce the women who were instrumental in bringing the SistersEsteem program to life. Venetia Davis is a teacher in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she created the SistersEsteem program. And Dr. Temple Lovelace served as Venetia's mentor as part of an incubator called Teachers Leading Change. Ladies, thanks so much for joining us here.
Thank you.
I love the name, Esteem.
Yes.
Obviously, it's a play on the acronym, which is certainly associated with science, technology, engineering, art, and math, but you added the E as it relates to building self-esteem.
Absolutely.
Yeah, why so?
I wanted to create this inquiry-based science program for young ladies, but I wanted them to know that it starts with self. And when you love and begin to grow as an individual, you can do anything. I actually worked with a social worker in our building, Ebony Taylor, and together we wanted to mentor these girls in the classroom and outside of the classroom.
And as it relates to math and science, which sometimes girls are very interested in and sometimes they're not.
Absolutely.
The need to be able to bridge that and science and technology. Dr. Lovelace, if you could speak to us on that.
Absolutely. One thing about young women is they don't see themselves as scientists or as mathematicians. In education, we don't do a good job of providing opportunities for them to learn. And so one of the unique things about SistersEsteem is that they're able to have that. They're able to fail in the classroom. They're able to ask questions. They're able to see themselves in the content. SistersEsteem is gender responsive so that young women are able to say, you know what, I can see myself as a scientist in the future. So we want to create persistence for them. We want to create an identity as a scientist, a mathematician, or an engineer, or whatever they want to choose in terms of those careers, which are traditionally male.
So what happens when the girls are there? Give us an idea of the day or the program or what goes on for them.
So we began with Did You Know? And the girls talk about their day. They're able to release. And from there, we began a lesson. We'll jump into a science lesson where they're collaborating together, or we may be doing a self-esteem activity, such as mirror, mirror, or cross the line, or we're preparing for competitions, local competitions. One competition we've been in for over 3 years is the Connects competition, and where the girls are building and learning about physics through Connects, or they are making deodorant and soap, learning about chemistry. Or they could also be working on spoken word, which helps, them have a voice in today's society.
How do you measure how this is working? How do you gauge it and know that what they're learning as part of this is actually helping for them?
I will say that our girls, I'm watching my girls become leaders. They're becoming change agents within the school and within their communities. Not just that, they're growing as individuals, and 75% of our girls are going into 9th grade and taking advanced biology. So it's exciting to
see
know.
them actually choosing the math and science classes
Absolutely,
as opposed
absolutely.
to being directed to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference. And so, Temple, when we looked at this, we talked a little bit about your involvement in terms of helping Venetia get the program going. As it relates to other programs nationwide, how would you suggest making a difference for other teachers who are looking to implement something like this in the classroom or in their school district?
Absolutely. One of the things that I'm working with Venetia and other teachers is building up their confidence so that they also know they're change agents. We want to make sure that they have a community. So the advice is for teachers to seek out someone who thinks like them, seek out somebody who can innovate with them. Also, look at their students as partners in the classroom, and then connect outside the school walls. See what national initiatives are there, see what community initiatives are there, as well as make sure that they realize that they can make a change in the classroom with education and with community-based opportunities for their students.
And would you say that was the same, that this would be so easily implemented in other school districts if they were to use some of the things that Temple mentioned?
Absolutely, absolutely. The one thing about Sisters Esteem is that I created a curriculum that was culturally relevant for the students that I have in front of me, and that's so very important. Yes, it takes time, and yes, it takes great mentors like Dr. Temple Lovelace, but creating a curriculum that's culturally relevant for the students that we have in front of us is what makes this program work.
And what do you hope that you role model for these girls?
That they too can do it. I want them to be bigger and better than me and go beyond and know that they can do anything as long as they put their mind to it.
Absolutely. So. We've used this term quite often, so yeah, definitely. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's one thing to really talk about social and emotional learning, but now we're going to actually see it in action. We have some of the young women from Sisters Esteem right here in our studio, and they're going to share one of the motivational exercises they use. All right, girls, take it away.
We are Sisters Esteem.
My persuasion can build a nation. Endless power, our love we can devour. You'll do anything for me. Who run the world?
Girls everywhere lose interest in science by 9th grade because science is
boring. Why is my science teacher always a man?
He doesn't understand.
They're not just boys,
but girls
want to do experiments with their hands.
Cell phones, iPads, tablets, and bots. Things we think we need to use in everyday life.
Especially girls.
Did you know only 30% of Google's workforce is female?
But that's not only a Google problem. Facebook, Yahoo, and also LinkedIn.
As girls, we are determined to make a change.
Why is it that there are only 22% of women working in the engineering field?
Because when the privilege for men go up,
the opportunities for women go down.
We paint our nails, we dye our hair. Does this color look good on me?
Did you know
women museum directors only earn 71 cents per dollar earned by male directors?
But really, how much makeup did we put on today?
And still we don't know that what we have done is art.
Math. We know math. How long our hair is, how short our shorts are.
Pi. We know pi. Strawberry, blueberry, raspberry. No, it's 3.14.
Thank you so much. So inspirational and so talented too. I love the message. Taylor, I'd love to ask you a couple of questions. And one is, how does this help you with learning science and technology and math?
Well, spoken word specifically helps with our self-esteem, basically. We just learn from each other, and everything just kind of flows from that with technology and science and everything else we do.
And the message is really important because, you know, obviously girls are into makeup and clothes, but shouldn't be afraid of learning math and science.
Yes. Everything kind of bounces off of us because we're girls. The science field is more towards males, and that's not fair. So Ms. Davis has us for Sisters Esteem for mainly girls so we can dominate in the science field.
What do you do in the classroom? What are some of the projects you all work on?
We did spoken word. That just really helps us express how we feel. Instead of making it towards in a very negative way, we make it positive to show that we actually have a voice, and so it just helps. Science is everywhere that you go, so we just bring it to people in ways that they would understand. We have so many different units. We have connects. We did 3D printing, and so we hit on every single field in the science industry.
Absolutely, exploring all of those fields.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly. What would you tell young women who are maybe apprehensive or not interested in math, science, and technology?
Well, males are really dominating this field, and as girls, we need to step up and show that we can do the same things or even better than what the males are doing.
And that's the case. You all did a beautiful job. Thank you so much for answering my questions.
Actually, we have a little special gift for you.
Why, thank you. And what is this?
This is part of our beauty industry. We have unit, we have our emollient, which is another word for lotion, chapstick, and an all-natural soap.
And you all made this in the classroom? Yes. Great. I will definitely use these things. I appreciate this. So coming up, we've got some tips for parents to choose the best apps that help kids build social skills. But up first, social and emotional learning requires a range of abilities. Here's what experts have to say about the skills kids need to succeed.
In the 21st century, kids need more than solid academic skills to succeed. Experts recommend these social and emotional skills to help kids be college and career ready. Self-awareness. It's the ability to identify your emotions and understand how they influence your behavior. Self-management. That's the ability to regulate your emotions and show self-control. It includes managing stress and setting goals. Social awareness helps children empathize with others and respect diversity. Young people also need relationship skills so they can work with others, cooperate, and solve conflicts. And finally, young people need to make responsible decisions, considering the well-being of themselves and others, and understanding consequences. Kids do better in school and in life when they can respect others and respect themselves.
Our final guest today is Jennifer Ahalt, an educational program manager at Common Sense Media, a nonprofit organization that provides education and advocacy to families to promote safe technology and media for children. Jennifer, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
So there are lots of apps out there for parents to choose from as it relates to emotional learning. And when you talk with parents about how best to choose, what are some of the questions that come up?
Oh, I think every app's created differently, and when parents go to choose, the first thing they do is probably go to a place where you can purchase these apps, and popularity, character, driven by popular characters that their children are into or like, and so they want to make sure it's age appropriate. They want to make sure the content is for learning, and it's not just kind of gibberish, so to speak, in an app. They also want to make sure that they can take the learning offline. And so what are some things I can work with my child as they look at the on-screen information? What can I do off-screen with that? And then they also want to avoid in-app purchases, especially at the younger ages, because they're not quite sure what they're tapping and purchasing. And so you really want to avoid those types of
Sometimes it's really tough to get a good review so that you know what you're purchasing. Certainly your company that you're associated with spends some time looking at reviews and recommendations. How best do you do that so that parents can make a better decision?
We have an awesome editorial team, and our editorial team background is really either existing or former teachers or existing teachers, and we have a really strong rubric that takes a look at the learning and the support and the pedagogy behind the certain apps that are delivering the content to certain age levels. And so with that rubric, it really does show or shine a light on the ratings that it can offer for particular content areas such as social emotional learning and the age appropriateness for that.
What may be some of the common mistakes, though, that parents make when they're trying to choose these apps for their children?
I think the biggest thing is when their child's into a certain character or popularity, the one's risen at the top of the list. You just feel like it's an automatic, let's purchase, everyone's doing it, so to speak, instead of taking the time to really look at the depth of it and what it's going to deliver to their child and what they're going to get out of it.
Now, we know with some children, they probably know more about the apps than the parents do.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But in a family making this decision, how would you best encourage parents to bring their children along on this journey?
I think the biggest thing is to get involved, sit down with them and be involved with the app on the screen with them, and then understand how to take it offline. How can you build real life experiences from what they just consumed on the tablet or the device?
Are there, well, I guess I shouldn't say mistakes in choosing them, but maybe not knowing how best to use an app? Are there certain things that parents and children should be aware of in terms of getting the best use out of it?
Absolutely, and I think social emotional apps are your biggest challenge in terms of how do you take what they're getting or gaining from that app and turning it into a real life experience. So bridging that gap between what's being consumed and then how can I give my child that real life experience with what they just learned, especially with emotions and the caring and the sadness and the happiness and what does that look like in real life and in our home. So I think the biggest thing is parents aren't always sure how to take it offline.
How do they though? Is it just being that aware and knowing that your child has just been using this app and now you need to find examples offline? What are the best approaches for
Most apps you'll see will have a parent guide or some type of support guide within it if it's designed well. And that really will offer a lot of questions to take offline, scenarios, experiences, situations for parents to be experiencing with their children within their family.
So be sure to explore the
Yes,
parent's
the
guide.
parent guide is very important, and if the app has it, it's usually really well designed and thought through, and a lot of research usually goes into those because there's educators behind it.
Great. Any final advice?
I think it's just important to sit with your kids and be involved and understand what they're playing with and what they're doing and who they're playing with, even if it's online.
And maybe even say no if a parent decides that this is not appropriate and let's find a different solution.
Absolutely. I know in my household common sense becomes a verb. Did you common sense it? And we know, my children know, the expectations. We offer a lot of parent resources on our website to help navigate what does that media life look like in the home.
Great.
With documents and things like that parents can use to drive that conversation around appropriateness.
All right, Jennifer, thank you so much for being here. We certainly appreciate it. Now, it's not enough to simply fill kids' heads with facts. When we help them build social and emotional skills, too, kids grow into adults who are caring, productive, and successful members of society. Thanks so much for being here, and join us again next time for more IQ Smart Parent.
Want to learn more about IQ Smart Parent? Visit us online at iqsmartparent.org for more episodes and additional tools and resources. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest to share your thoughts on being a 21st century parent. IQ Smart Parent is made possible in part by the McCune Foundation and the Grable Foundation.